Welcome aboard to Train Tuesday. So glad to have you on board. I am your host, Jim Wigan with Athearn, and we've got some great stuff to talk about on this episode. We're going to be talking about the Athearn Genesis GP38-2, as well as containers by the Athearn line in both HO and N scale. So, without further ado, go ahead and get comfortable in your workshop chair and grab the beverage of your choice, and let's get started with some model train goodness. We're going to start with the Athearn Genesis GP38-2. Now let's go back to the 1970s, the early 1970s to be specific. This was a point when many first-generation diesels were reaching the end of their service lives. Now, the most common replacement locomotive became the GP38-2. EMD began production of this 16-cylinder, non-turbocharged 2,000 horsepower engine in 1972. Unlike the GP38's engine, which drove a generator to supply power to the traction motors, the GP38-2's prime mover drove an alternator which produced AC electrical current that was then rectified to DC power to power the four traction motors. Another major change for the GP38-2 was the introduction of the -2 modular electrical cabinet. For more than 40 years, the GP38-2 has worked mainline freights, locals, switching jobs, yard service, helpers, snow fighting trains, and yes, even hump power. Many remain in service today, and you can see them in many different paint schemes. A lot of these paint schemes hide many previous owners. Now, the one that you see on your screen here, this was announced back in October of 2021, and they were delivered earlier this year. Now, Athearn is completely out of these. However, if you really like this grand trunk that you see on your screen here, you can possibly find it through your favorite Athearn dealer. Now we're going to talk about the lines that we're going to have available for pre-order. You have till Friday, July 26th to place your pre-orders on everything that we talk about on this episode of Train Tuesday. So we're going to go to the mid-1980s and Burlington Northern. Now, let's go back to 1980, and after the BN Frisco merger of that same year, many Frisco diesel locomotives were painted into BN colors fairly quickly. When repainted, they retained many of those features, such as the Leslie 5-chime horn, front class lights, and nose gyro light. Many would soldier on into the BNSF era. However, they would lose their rooftop beacons and nose gyro lights in favor of ditch lights and nose-mounted headlights. Well, these are former Frisco BN locomotives as they appeared in the mid-1980s. We're offering three different road numbers here. 2316, seen at the top, has a dynamic brake with a square paper air filter box, and 2325 and 2333 both have dynamic brakes with angled paper air filter box. Now, the feature specific just for this road, these are former Frisco units. They are a mid-production body, which means they're going to have corrugated grills and standard fans. These will all have lit number boards and front class lights. The nose gyro light is an effect that you can unlock with Tsunami 2 equipped versions. They'll all feature 3,600 gallon fuel tanks. The Stratolite beacon, again, that is an effect that you can unlock with the Tsunami 2 equipped version. They're also going to have Blomberg B trucks, Leslie 5-chime horn, and they're going to have flush standard exhaust stacks. Now we're going to go into the 2000s with a line that's been heavily requested lately. This is Illinois Central as they appeared in the early 2000s. Let's go back to 1972 when Gulf Mobile and Ohio received 15 GP38-2s from AMD. These early phase units featured wired grills and wide-spaced radiator fans. That same year, however, the GM&O merged into the Illinois Central. After a few different paint schemes, the IC settled on the simple black and white scheme in the 1990s. A lot of us rail fans refer to this paint scheme as the Death Star. This would soon become the last scheme worn until Canadian National purchased the IC in 1998, with many of these units lasting well into the 2010s. Likewise, we're going to offer 3 different road numbers for these units. Each one has subtle detailed differences, which is why they're in the Genesis line. Starting at the top, 9562. This is going to have a thin white stripe and removed front plow. Next, 9564, the middle unit in your screen, is going to feature a thick white frame stripe and a small front E&D plow. And then finally, unit number 9567 will also have a thin white frame stripe and removed front plow. Now, details and features specific to this group of locomotives include, of course, their former GM&O. They're going to have front and rear ditch lights, Nathan P5 horn, non-dynamics, early phase 1 bodies with wire grills, and of course the wide space radiator fans. Now let's start heading for the West Coast, and for that we're also going to head into the 90s. We're going to talk about the Southern Pacific next. These are 1990s era locomotives, so they've seen some rebuild in their lives. Now in 1980, Southern Pacific placed an order for 45 of these GP38-2s from EMD. Starting, however, in the late 1980s, the FRA regulations dictated that any locomotive that had a lighting feature that was installed must operate. If, for whatever reason, that did not operate, the locomotive couldn't see mainline service. Now, to combat this, the Southern Pacific, as well as some other roads, would simply remove any unused or mechanically problematic lighting features such as class lights and gyro lights. Also during this time, the SP rebuilt many of their locomotives with the removal of the famous L-shaped window glass cabs. This was mainly to cut down on the costly repair bill if one of these windows should be broken. Now, our offering shows their 1990s appearance before the UP merger of 1996. We're offering 3 different road numbers for this era: 4812, 4836, and 4844. Now, features and details specific for this group of locomotives include these are a late phase body with corrugated grills and Q fans. They're going to have their 1990s appearance. They're going to have lit number boards, however, their class lights, like we were saying earlier, have been removed, so non-functioning. Remove class lights. Stratolight beacon, this is an effect that you'll get with the Tsunami 2 equipped version. They will have Nathan P3 horns, modified L window cab, and the removed SP front and rear light packages. Let's go on to something a little bit different that you may not have expected. And let's go back to 1975. This is the Cleveland Electric. The Cleveland Electric Illuminating Company purchased 9 GP38-2s from EMD back in 1975. These units were built to Conrail specs, so they featured a cab signal box, small weed cutter style plows, Leslie 3-chime horns, and small 2,600-gallon fuel tanks. Now, these units operated out of Ohio, hauling coal trains from their power plants in Ashtabula and Eastlake, Ohio. Usually running in sets of 4, one being used as a spare, they were used until their lease expired in 1997 and returned to their leaser. They would eventually be picked up by Union Pacific and then retired in 2008. And the last report showed that they are now in the service of GATX Leasing Service in Poole, and they can be seen operating wherever they're needed. We're going to offer 3 road numbers for Cleveland Electric as they appeared in 1975. Units number 102, 104, and 107. Now, features specifically just for this set of locomotives include their as-delivered appearance. They will have lit class lights and number boards. They'll have Leslie 3-chime horns, front and rear weed cutter style plows, dynamic brakes, and this is an early to mid body, so it's going to have wire grills and standard fans. Staying on course for the 1970s, we go to the Atlanta and St. Andrews Bay. Now, this is 1973. Atlanta and St. Andrews Bay Railroad started way back in 1906, operating between Panama City, Florida, and Dothan, Alabama. In 1973, they ordered a pair of GP38-2s from EMD. They were numbered 508 and 509. Painted in an attractive green and yellow scheme, they featured early footboards on both sides, nose gyro light, cab beacon, 3,200-gallon fuel tanks, and non-dynamic brakes. The railroad was purchased by the large Genesee and Wyoming Group in 2005, and 508 would become EARY 2014, while unit number 509 would become BAYL 2015. So we're offering both of these in their as-delivered appearance of 1973, 508, and 509. These are going to have the nose gyro light as well as the cab beacon. Both effects work with the Tsunami 2 equipped versions. These are non-dynamic brake equipped locomotives. They'll have the Leslie 3-chime horn, and they're going to have the early to mid body with wire grills and standard fans. Now let's talk about the features of these locomotives, going back to our earlier example. Now, since that earlier example that's out there now has been released, these have been upgraded. They now feature operating class lights and number boards. One thing that's very important to note, since these are Genesis locomotives, the operating class lights, that is all dependent on the prototype. So if the prototype locomotive had those operating class lights, say a locomotive from the 70s or early 80s, then those will function as well. However, some units like the SP, where they remove their classification lights, that means those models will not have functioning classification lights. Something else that they're going to have as far as details, of course, they're going to have coupler cut levers, MU hoses, train line hoses, of course, see-through cab windows with a full cab interior, walkway tread, windshield wipers, lift rings, wire grab irons, sander lines. There's two versions you can get. You can get the DCC Ready version. The DCC Ready version comes with a quick plug and play technology with 21-pin NEM connector, or you can get the DCC and sound equipped thanks to the Soundtrack Tsunami 2. These will also have detailed fuel tank with fuel fillers, fuel gauges, and breather pipes. The minimum radius on these is great for the guy for the small shelf layout or small, even 4x8. These will run on a minimum radius of 18 inches. And again, you've got until Friday, July 26th, to place your pre-orders on any one of these GP38-2s. Coming up next, we're going to switch gears to Athearn, and we're going to be talking containers. Now, we're going to be doing these containers in both HO and N scale. I'm going to go a little deep on the HO scale versions and then kind of do a wrap-up, cover-up with the N scale, because we're doing the same road names and road numbers in both scales. So if you get to the point of the video where you've got to the N scale and you want to know more about the prototype, just skip back a little bit where we talk about the prototypes that we're offering in this run. Now, these that you see on your screen now are from the previous run. They may still be available at some hobby shops or Athearn dealers. We are completely out of these at Athearn. But let's now talk about what are available for pre-order. So we're going to start with K-Line. This is a 1980s era container. Now, if you didn't know, K-Line is a Japanese transportation company. It owns a fleet that includes dry cargo ships or bulk carriers, container ships, liquefied natural gas carriers, tankers, and container terminals. Now, at one time, it was the 14th largest container transportation and shipping company in the world before becoming part of Ocean Network Express not too long ago, back in 2017. Now, we're going to be offering these as one pack of 3 with non-duplicating road numbers. Coming up next is the P&O. This is a 2000s era container. P&O Ned Lloyd Container Line Limited was an Anglo-Dutch worldwide ocean-going container shipping line with dual headquarters in both London and Rotterdam. The company was formed in 1997 by the merger of the container shipping interests of Dutch Transportation Company, Royal Needloyd or Needloyd Line, and the British maritime shipping giant P&O Group. or P&O containers. Now, they were acquired in 2005 by Maersk. Next, we have a 2016 to current day container, and you've probably seen these recently. These are Costco, not Costco the store, Costco. This is a Chinese international container transportation and shipping company. It is a subsidiary of Costco Shipping Holdings, and its parent company is China's state-owned Costco Shipping. These containers are appropriate for those who model 2016 to current day. Now, this next set is perfect for you, the folks that are modeling. Maybe you're not modeling intermodal, you don't have room for intermodal. Well, you can add these to the smallest of modules or layouts because these are storage containers. Now, these are appropriate for anyone that's modeling 2015 and above. Sitebox is a company that specializes in containers used for storage since their start way back in 1997. They currently have a multiple locations strategically placed in Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, South Carolina, and North Carolina. So again, even if you don't run intermodal, you're going to see these containers somewhere being used as some type of storage container. So it's a great use of a scenic effect versus an actual piece of rolling stock. Here we've got 2000s era Trident. Now, Trident is an international container leasing company which provides containers for the marine intermodal cargo industry for predominantly international shipping lines and logistics providers. Again, this is a 2000s era container. You certainly still see these somewhat today. And then finally, another 2000s era container. This is J Container Service, and they are a pioneer in the maritime transport and container shipping industries in India. They were set up in 1991 with a vision to provide state-of-the-art services to shipping lines and leasing companies for all their requirements in the fields of handling, such as storage, warehousing, repairing, and rental leasing for different kinds of containers. So there you have it. You've got a little bit of everything, predominantly from the 1980s to present day. Now, going back to our evergreen samples from a previous release, we'll talk about the features of these models. These are all new road numbers, so you can just add these to your roster without worrying about duplication. Of course, they're fully assembled and they're easily stackable. And again, each container is individually numbered. There are non-duplicating road numbers, both in the current set as well as what we've released in previous runs. Now, N scale guys, don't be disappointed. We have N scale for you as well. Now, I won't go through the prototype information like I did the HO because essentially these are the same paint schemes and same road numbers that we're offering in the HO. But first, for you guys that are modeling the 1980s, we do have the K line. Again, one pack of 3 non-duplicating road numbers. We're also offering the 2000s era P&O. Again, one pack, 3 containers, non-duplicating road numbers. And scalers that are wanting to model a little bit more modern times, we have the 2016 and up Costco shipping. And NSCO guys, especially you guys that are modular fans, the Sitebox. These are 2015 on up. So if you're modeling pretty much present day and you want to have one of use for these for some type of storage situation on your layout or module, we've got you covered. There's 3 in a package. Again, don't have to worry about road numbers duplicating. And then finally, the Trident. The Trident, again, this is a 2000s era. And then following that is the J Container Services. Again, 2000s era container. So these are predominantly 2000s with the exception of the K-line. K-line would be perfect in 1980s intermodal. Everything else would be appropriate for either early 2000s or 2015 and above. Now, features of these models, again, these are all new road numbers, so there's no duplicates either in the present package or previous runs. They are fully assembled, easily stackable, and each container is individually numbered. I say that because a lot of people really do ask us that question that many times. You don't have to worry about duplicate road numbers. So there you have it. You've got until Friday, July 26th to place your pre-orders on either the Athearn Genesis GP38-2s and HO scale or the HO or N scale 20-foot containers. Well, that's all I've got for you for this program. One thing I do want to let you know, at the time of this video, I am getting ready for the St. Louis RPM show. Athearn's going to have a booth there, and I will be at the booth. So if you have a chance to come to the St. Louis RPM meet, please do stop by the Athearn booth and introduce yourself, and let's talk trains. Also, if you're a modeler, and I know you are if you're going to the RPM meet, bring your models. What's one of the funs of the RPM meet is not only those great clinics and a chance to meet manufacturers such as Athearn, but it's also a chance for you to display what you're working on, whether it be locomotives, structures, or any other types of parts of your railroad. So be sure to bring those with you. If you'd like to see more details about the St. Louis RPM meet, I've got a link in the description below that will take you to the website and tell you more about that show. So until next time, everyone, I want everybody out there to be happy, be healthy, be safe, do some good modeling, and above all, high greens. Take care.